Hello there. Well, hello there. Mr. Phillips? How you doing, sir? But I'm here. Thank you, sir.
It's good to be here.
Hello, sir. How are you? All is well. All is you good?
Get a hug, I don't get it.
All right, good to see you as well. All right, how are you?
I'm gonna tell you that. Oh, man. That was cute.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've got 6 o'clock straight up, if you will, at this time. Turn any cell phone devices to the silent or vibrate position. And we'll go ahead at this time. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll of the council?
The Honorable Mayor Pro Tem Hattie Portis Jones.
Present.
The Honorable James Whitmore.
Present.
Honorable Linda J. Davis.
Present.
Honorable Ulysses J. Smallwood.
Present.
Honorable Pat Palin.
Present.
Honorable Alex Heath. Mr.
Absent.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Okay, we'll go to our first presentation for downtown.
The first item is a presentation for Downtown Facade Improvement Grant, and this is from Economic Development.
Good evening, Mayor and Council
Good evening.
and citizens. This evening, we bring for your review and submit for your review the Facade Grant Program draft to provide reimbursement grants to property owners, authorized tenants, and small businesses in the eligible areas within the Downtown Historic District. There we go. I'm just bringing up the presentation. There we go. The grants are intended to implement transformative strategies that promote business growth and also to revitalize historic buildings in keeping with our placemaking strategic plan, offer opportunities for artists to help in the conceptual design and placemaking within the district. As you see before you, the vision that was established for the Facade grant is in keeping with the refresh, rebrand, and renew vision, in which the downtown area was seen as a core or focus for future development and expansion downtown. The purpose is to implement a community transformative strategy that promotes business growth within the downtown historic district. It's also intended to incentivize business owners to rehabilitate the facades in businesses located within the designated historic downtown district. If you see in the far corner, there's a quote by Georgia Main Street. We included that in there to say that this is a holistic approach. The Facade grant will incorporate business recruitment, it will incorporate marketing strategies, and the overall 4-point approach as established by the Main Street program. The Fairburn's Facade program restores economic vitality. In building facades and restoration, it improves not only attractiveness, but it deals with safety concerns, which we have experienced firsthand. When facades are not regularly upgraded, they can present hazards in the future. It also leads to business growth and downtown investment and supports environmental sustainability in that businesses that we're upgrading the facade, we're not tearing down those structures, but we're enhancing them. And again, it also increases property values. One of the things that we want to emphasize is the Facade program is not a standalone program, but it builds upon our existing plans. All of these plans we made major investments in. The LCI Downtown Master Plan was $100,000 plus grant. And we definitely want to make sure that we emphasize that we're building upon recommendations that they made to us. One of those was design continuity for our downtown area, making sure that the branding was not only through a lot of our banners and our beautification, but also in our structures. A facade grant program was one of the priorities that they thought would help start that process. The other things that they indicated was that we have 2 to 3 catalytic projects in the downtown area. With the facade grant, we're hoping that this is the initiative that helps to broaden to those larger projects. Once you come down to a downtown space that's been beautified, we're hoping that our investors, our developers see that and say, look, this is a beautiful place, we want to invest here, and that helps us to go to our next level, which would be those redevelopment projects. The other aspect of that was the green space design. People are coming to our downtown area, they're enjoying our streetscapes, and now we want them to not only eat, but just have that a part of their livability. Parks is something that's recommended, as well as enhancing with additional parking for our downtown pedestrians, friendly spaces and walkability. Additional rooftops to attract more restaurants and businesses. 2 of the greatest priorities that we've been hearing about is grocery stores and a nice restaurant for the downtown area. Believe it or not, facade grants help that. The other aspect is what we talked about with the catalytic recommendations. Facade grants, while it starts as something small in terms of renovating structures, it also leads to those catalytic projects, and we want this to be something that we spearhead into more development downtown and expansion. This is the program area. Our program area is based upon the LCI Downtown Master Plan. That program is focused on the downtown core, but if you see the little asterisks that almost look like jacks, those represent placemaking locations. So in addition to facade grants, we want to ensure that we have public art. We are finding out through our partners that public art helps to not only enhance but increase the amount of investment and interest into downtown areas. The Fairburn's Facade Grant will be a phased implementation program. Again, we'll start with business recruitment. We want to introduce this as a pilot project, and we want to make sure that our business owners, residents, and owners are familiar with this as an incentive as well as an advantage economically for them. The next phase, after we have concentrated and implemented this program, we will also assist with a pre-application process. We are working closely with our planning and zoning because that's going to be instrumental in getting these projects not only designed, but also to help folks be successful in the application process. Phase 2, we're looking at design partners and technical consultants. We just don't want to have any old facade. We want to make sure that a design consultant, a technical person can come down and make sure we are preserving our historic structures and traditional assets, as well as looking at modern alternatives that help to enhance our spaces. And finally, the build-out phase will be the selection process. Once we have established a pool of applicants, we've walked them through the process, we've talked to our technical advisors, then we will implement by selecting. Our timeline is anticipated that by October or July 2023, that we will have at least 1 or 2 of these projects underway. The application process, and I won't belabor this because I'm sure all of you are familiar with this type of program, but we wanted to let you know what projects would be eligible within the Fairburn Facade Program. Of course, historic storefront restoration, masonry stabilization, that's huge for us because we have some buildings that need stabilization. Of course, awnings and paintings, fresh facades, and non-conforming feature removal, meaning that some of our signs, while we love them, they are not in compliance. Some of our building structures are not in compliance, so we'll assist in that effort. Evaluation criteria will be threefold. Of course, there are going to be some major renovation projects. Although this is a reimbursement, we reimburse up to $10,000. There are some projects that will exceed that, but we will be reimbursing up to $10,000. We have minor improvement programs, as well as grant incentives for, of course, the non-conforming. The application process, we talked about just briefly, pre-submittal conference, application, and then acceptance and program implementation. And then finally, the grant award. Once we have an applicant to successfully go through the process, we have an evaluation committee that consists of the downtown or the development authority, downtown development authority, as well as the Main Street Board of Directors. They will work in concert to make sure that all of these applications are scaled and selected based upon a scoring mechanism. And then the grant will be awarded. No grant award will exceed 50% of eligible projects, and the applicant will have 60 days to get started. And that completes the presentation. We are asking that this was pretty much to bring this before the mayor and city council to review, to give us insights, and to ask for approval moving forward to our city council.
Mr. Phillips, just for clarity purposes before I get questions, this item is actually coming to the next agenda. Is it not,
I'm sorry, Mayor.
is this item not coming to the next council meeting agenda?
So this item is a part of our ARPA funding plan that we initially discussed at our spring retreat.
Okay.
That is a part of the FY23 budget. So as you may recall, we had a number of allocations within that, and one of that was our small business grant program.
Correct.
These facade grants fall under that allocation,
Okay.
the American Rescue Plan Act. That's how these funds are allocated or funded for this particular facade grant program. That is a part of our FY23 proposed budget, which we'll discuss a little later in this work session.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Does any member of council have any questions about this item? Mr. Whitmore, and then Ms. Davis, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Question, we do have one of our business owners who has improved his facade and structure because it was ready to fall and causing a safety issue. How does this apply to him or that particular business? Because actually, I think they set the standard for 29, which is the pawn shop.
Okay.
So are they still eligible for this ARPA even though they have already completed the facade remodeling?
So they would not be eligible necessarily for reimbursement for projects that have already been completed before the program is implemented. However, there could be applications for some future work or upgrades that they would like to do, and they would certainly be eligible for that.
Okay.
That's a great question, and we can include that clarification in our policy.
Ms.
I
Davis?
just want some clarification. You probably have already said this. What is the total amount of the grant monies that we can give out? And the $10,000 is the most that we're going to give to any particular business, is that correct?
Yes, another great question. So the total amount of this program, that the funding that we're asking and allocating, is $50,000. Each applicant can be granted up to $10,000. 50%, which is lesser, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions by members of council?
Yes, Mayor.
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
A couple points. I note in the process that an applicant is allowed to request an extension to complete the facade. I just want to make sure, ask you to make a note, since we are using ARPA funds, to ensure that no extension exceeds those dates.
Yes, ma'am.
For use of those funds. And then I had noted, whether P&Z was involved, and you did say that, and I do appreciate that. And then lastly, to the point made by Councilman Whitmore. Do we have we have protocol for facade protocol?
Another great
Specific colors, particular materials, et cetera. So could you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yes, ma'am. So the Historic Preservation Society, when they gave us our designation, which I believe is 1988, they did provide a scale in terms of which color palette we could use, as well as they gave us some insight as to the type of design, I think it's Gothic Georgian, that we should apply in our architectural considerations. Moving forward twofold, we will make that clarification in terms of, to Councilman Whitmore's point about those who have already, made improvements, but also the design consultant will put together in the application process what it should look like, what is authorized, what is eligible. They have to submit 3 concept plans to the committee, and the committee will review based upon that criteria. So both the committee will be made aware of what they're looking for from the technical guidance, as well as the applicant. We will possibly consider, if an applicant is not approved because of design, that we can give them time to mitigate and then reapply.
Well, I mean, that's specifically the question I'm asking, because if you are providing them with the guidelines as to what is acceptable, then I would think that would lessen a design not being accepted, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so let's, ensure that we're doing that. And then is this part of our zoning ordinance? Do we have specific ordinance that talks about facade?
Yes, we have a specific ordinance that talks about the signage and also the facade specs.
Okay.
So, to your point, we will make sure during that pre-application, which will be conducted by the Planning and Zoning Department, because we want to make sure that the experts in the field are the people that are guiding that process, that they give the applicant all of the information that they need to be successful, and ensure that their designs are compliant.
Right, and you stated that this is a pilot. What if you get no applicants, because they are having to put up monies as well, and they may not be able to afford it, right?
That's very true.
And so what if we get no applicants? Then what is our plan B in terms of assisting businesses or, reaching out to them, having conversations with them about it? And or reallocating these funds to buildings owned by the city for facade upgrades?
Another great question. So on the first part of that question, in terms of the those who are, you were saying about the compliant part?
Yes, if we've established the criteria for a facade.
And we have no applicants.
Yeah, well, that's a different issue.
Right.
What if we had no applicants who could afford to participate in this program?
Right.
Because they're having to put up monies as well. We'll give them $10,000. It's not necessarily matching, but we will give them $10,000, but
But they don't have the first 10,000 for the
exactly,
reimbursement.
exactly.
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things that we're actively doing is the business recruitment. Our first phase is to go out and actively promote and let everyone know what's available to them. The other aspect of it, there are folks that are who are non-compliant, where the code enforcement will eventually say, unless this facade is brought up to code, then you have some other issues. Our hope is if we don't get the folks through the carrot, that we'll get them through the stick. And if all else fails, then I think that's a great suggestion to use on city
So,
property.
A couple of points for clarity. One, facade grant programs aren't new, and so these have been done in several other jurisdictions. There's always a possibility that we would get no applicants, and if so, we would reallocate that to other small business support. This, again, is part of a larger allocation through the American Rescue Plan Act, and we've put $350,000 in there that was previously approved by council to support small businesses. And so if this particular program, for whatever reason, did not take root and was not getting any activity, we would reroute that to the other small business programs that we're currently developing. We want to figure out how we can best support the small businesses in our downtown district, as that has been a priority from you as leadership, that we want to revitalize downtown development. Based on other locations and other municipalities that have used similar grants, they typically seem to be well regarded and well participated. And so we are hopeful that that will be the case in our downtown as well, but we would certainly be ready to pivot and allocate it to our other small business grant programs that we're currently developing to continue to try to revitalize downtown. As it relates to the earlier point about extensions, in the larger point, the American Rescue Plan Act funding, as you may recall when we discussed it a couple of months ago in a council meeting, in their final rule, they offered a standard allowance for revenue loss of up to $10 million per municipality, essentially meaning that any city that received less than $10 million in American Rescue Plan funds can utilize that revenue loss provision and move that funding to the general fund. That is the option we took. That streamlines the reporting. So as opposed to reporting on every project, which is what you would do if you were in excess of 10 million, we reported that through the ARPA plan under the allowable revenue loss provision. So we report it as a single revenue loss into the general fund, and so that does not directly connect to a timeline for one program or the other. So we're tracking that reporting. So I just wanted to make that clarity. We oftentimes refer to ARPA funds, and I wanted to make sure we were clear that that money has been moved to the general fund as provided for in the final rule for the American Rescue Plan Act.
Well, thank you so much for reminding me of that discussion. That is good to know. And so maybe we can find another category of funds other than ARPA, because that sends different signals, right? And so thank you for that. And relating to your small business support plan, when might we expect to see that plan? And then secondly, are the dollars that you're looking to support that, do they fall into the same category that you just described for?
Yes.
Facade?
So those are under active development. I would expect to bring those forward by a meeting in September.
Okay.
They're currently being developed, and so this was the first one, pardon me? This was the first one to be developed, but they are under active development now and are making good progress. Both Ms. Abernathy and our economic development consultant, Mr. Pike, have done great work in bringing these programs forward. I expect that to continue. So you will see the other allocations for small business support coming forward shortly. And that total allocation under the previously approved plan for American Rescue Plan Act allocates $350,000 for local business grant programs. So this is $50,000 for facade grants, but there's still another $300,000 still remaining for small business grant programs, and you'll get additional details on that in the very near future as we develop those programs and build those out. And that goes along, of course, with the total allocation of $6.2 million across various categories.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, so thank you so much for that. I guess I began this conversation, though, asking about affordability. And so I just want to, if there are businesses who want to do this but can't afford it, just give some thought to that, right? And making sure that we know the real reason why they may not be participating and how we might be able to assist them in some form or fashion.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Whitmore?
Thank you, Mayor. Just for clarity's sake, okay, so I know that the facade standards, they're in the overlay district,
Yes,
okay, and there's a color chart, and that was approved when the overlay district was created.
yes, sir.
So we went back and we reviewed those color charts, so now everything is in sync with the future of what we want the overlay district to look like. Okay, so
Yes, sir.
all that has been reviewed and,
So I do want to, I know that I've reviewed the ordinance, but I would have to defer to the planning and zoning. I'm not sure whether we are at a point to answer that question right now, but we could get that information back to you. But I do know that the color palette is within the design, technical design that we were given, and within the ordinance itself, it does say how structurally what could be in the downtown area in the overload district. to the point where even with certain houses, they have a model inside of the ordinance to show you the dimensions, the setbacks, all of that information.
Okay, so the color palettes and for the facade and also improvements, can we actually see some of those? I have not seen any of the color palettes. I don't know if any of my colleagues have or not.
I was going to bring them tonight and didn't, sorry.
So to answer your question, yes, all that information is available. Ms. Abernathy referenced it a little earlier in her presentation that this program is not a standalone program. It sits on top of our existing guidelines, ordinances, overlay districts. So nothing that comes out of this can be in conflict with anything that this council has already approved.
Understood.
Overlay districts, zoning ordinance, all of the guidance that we've received from our council's leadership, any program that gets qualified through this process would have to align the color palette and all those other standards, as you know, that are in the overlay. So that will provide the parameters, the framework for this program, and it must be within those approved documents that already exist in the city. So specifically as it relates to color palette, no, you won't see any color schemes on any of these facade improvements that do not fall within the existing color palette.
Okay. And so then I would venture to say that what has been done with the pawn shop is actually what we have in our
Color palette.
color palette
Green that
scheme.
he is on his adjacent building, that green matches the green that's on that palette. Now, I wasn't here when he made those upgrades, but I do know that those colors are consistent.
Okay, that's,
One of the benefits of a facade grant program is it creates a consistent vista down your.
yes.
It's not the goal to have this hopscotch, everything looks different. And so that's where the overlay district and the zoning ordinance, that's how, as you know, we develop that consistency. And that's one of the goals, is to not only upgrade the facades, but to have a better consistent look as you curb appeal, if you will, as you drive down Main Street. You'll see that there is a pattern and a rhyme and reason to how downtown was developed.
So-
That's one of the key goals.
I agree with that. Consistency and uniformity.
Uniformity, both.
Consistency and uniformity, so, thank you, Mayor.
Members of
I have a question.
I want to make a comment first, and then I'll come back to you. If you remember, members of council that was here during my last term, we took the Development Authority, the City Council, and I want to say the P&Z, I believe.
Yes.
We took you to Atworth, Norcross, there was another third city up north,
Myrna?
Smyrna, and one of the things that's right in line with what you're inquiring about, Mr. Whitmore, and what Mr. Phillips has stated, one of the things that, as we looked at what we could do in our downtown area, one of the things that we talked about, Kennesaw was the actual other one, and one of the things that we talked about was the consistent look. Different businesses look like one face.
Right.
And again, that was one of the things why we were excited when Ms. Abernathy brought this forward as it relates to something we need to look into, because one of the things we wanted, as we meet with business owners, even as soon as tomorrow morning, some of the things we're asking them about programs like this so that we can hopefully not run into the situation. And Ms. Jones, that's a great observation you made about a possibility of not having a person to take it. We're advertising this, and again, as Ms. Abernathy said, we're advertising to folk that we believe will have a vested interest of the businesses, in this case, the facade downtown. So there's an outreach effort going on, and it's starting literally after starting tomorrow morning with myself. And so I just wanted to say again, I'm excited about what I believe this can do, and I'm hoping if you don't really need but one business owner to take advantage of it, and it'll catch on like fire. Go ahead. And I'll come back to you, Ms. Jones.
I needed to correct something I said earlier. The 350,000 in the small business grant program is not where this is funded from. We also have $800,000 in downtown development. The 50,000 for the facade grant program comes out of that 800,000. The $350,000 remains whole for our small business development program, which is currently under development as we speak. The scope for the RFP that we'll be utilizing for those services has already been drafted. We're reviewing that now, so that will be forthcoming. And so it's $50,000 out of our downtown development funding, and the $350,000 remains whole for our small business program, which will be shortly forthcoming.
Ms. Jones?
Well, to that point, have you delineated how the 800 will be spent?
We have not delineated the entire 800, no ma'am.
Okay.
This is the initial 50,000. We will be bringing forward to council further details on how that money will be allocated for various projects within the downtown. Part of that is our due diligence, figure out exactly where we are as it relates to some of the vacant spaces in downtown, some of the other opportunities that may lead to public-private partnerships, and so we want to get a complete understanding of where those opportunities are as we look to program the balance of that funding for downtown development with a key or an eye on making sure we move downtown development forward, and so that is forthcoming.
All right, and does that include the courthouse?
Does that include the courthouse?
Yes.
That could potentially include the courthouse. That is in the downtown district. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just wanted to throw that out there. So the question I had is regarding the color palette. When you say the color palette, is that the same thing as the color palette that was developed from the branding that the city of Fairburn did under Mayor Avery's previous administration?
So two different events. One was a design consultant came shortly after, in 2017, the Main Street program was created under Mayor Avery. And they had a technical design team to come and visit our downtown area. They did an assessment of the area, and in keeping with the historic preservation documents, they identified what the color palette should be in keeping with historic preservation principles.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so they're not the same then?
I will say that they are the same, but from different, how can I say it? Not so much from different sources, but the branding committee that came later relied on that to inform their branding.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so I just wanted, so the color palette, though, regardless of which source, if you will, it is the same?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I will verify because the dates, I think for the branding report are a little different. I'll verify which came first, but even to our Main Street logo, that's from the color palette.
I don't need to know that. It's
Okay.
not important. I just want to know that the color palette is the same.
It's the same, yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
because those are historic colors.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, thank you.
With that said, let's go to the second item.
The next item is a presentation of community garden strategy by planning and zoning.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening, how you doing?
And members of the community. So just as a refresher, my name is Rebecca Kiefer, and I have the pleasure of a softball of a presentation tonight because I'll be passing it on to my colleague here, Bonnie Lapwood. Just wanted to introduce her and the project that the city has been working on for the past year. But I'll keep it brief so as to not step on her toes in her presentation. So about a year ago in the 2021 cohort for the Community Development Assistance Program dispersed by ARC, the city of Fairburn received CDAP funds for technical assistance. It wasn't actually funds, it was technical assistance to be able to create the community garden strategy. And that strategy actually comes as an implementation component from the comp plan that identified different food access issues, and this being one of those tools that you now have upon adoption to be able to help impact some of those observed existing conditions through the comp plan process. So with that, the Planning and Zoning Department had managed the grant process, and the final deliverable being this community garden strategy that is on your consent agenda this evening at the 7 o'clock meeting. In the fiscal year 2023, Planning and Zoning will be passing the baton in the proposed budget for Parks and Rec to be taking on the implementation components of this plan. So with that, I'll pass it on to Bonnie.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Everyone. My name is Bonnie Lapwood. I am a senior planner with the Atlanta Regional Commission. We are the planning agency for the 11 county metro region, and We have this community assistance program, which, as Rebecca mentioned, provides technical assistance with small area plans and projects that fulfill one of several priority areas, one being access to healthy food. So that was the driving force behind the community garden strategy that you have before you. And here is a timeline that goes over the course of the project. It was applied for by the Planning and Zoning Department. And we began the project in December of 2021 with project management team meetings. We assembled a steering committee, which Councilmember Portis Jones served on. We had an online survey to solicit public feedback, a community meeting to do the same, and steering committee field trips to a local community garden and farm to gain some insight into what a community garden might look like when implemented in Fairburn. And the product of that was this document, the Community Garden Strategy. To go into a little bit more detail on the steering committee, we had a 13-member steering committee that included staff from Planning and Zoning, Parks and Recreation. We had a member from Margie's House, which provides food distribution, teachers, master gardeners, and some other interested residents that were passionate about the community garden project. We met virtually, and then we had 2 in-person field trips. We visited the UGA Extension Growl Garden in College Park, and then also Charco Farms, not far from here. And this gave insight into growing in Fairburn and its surrounds, and informed the plan. Our community engagement included an online survey, which asked residents about their visual preferences for components that they would like to see in a community garden, such as what they would like to see planting beds made of. There were 14 respondents. We also had an online community meeting. It was not very well attended, but the people who did attend were very passionate and spoke in support of implementing a community garden program. So here is the outcome. This is the document that lays out the strategy, which, as Rebecca mentioned, does include an analysis of the existing conditions here, including tracts that are designated by the USDA as low income, low access. That's in terms of access to fresh food at a grocery store. The document also includes case studies of other municipal-sponsored community garden programs, such as the ones in Jonesboro and Sugar Hill. It includes criteria for selecting a site for a large community garden, as well as 3 recommended sites that the city could consider. There is a summary of that online visual preference survey, funding sources and other resources for the program, and 3 key recommendations for stepping into a larger program, starting with a pilot at the Cora Robinson Park site, establishing a garden club, and then, as you can see, there is a rendering of a larger site at one of the recommended sites, which is the Georgia Power easement off of Renaissance Parkway. And I am happy to answer any questions that you may have about this project. And as Rebecca mentioned, it is presented for your approval on tonight's consent agenda.
Is there any member of council has a question about this item?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Could you, so thank you so much for the presentation and all of the support that you provided. Could you talk a little bit about the success of Sugar Hill and Jonesboro? What are some keys to success for a community garden?
Absolutely. So the Sugar Hill Garden has been running for, I believe, over a decade. And the Jonesboro Community Garden was only started in 2020 but they doubled the amount of garden beds due to demand over the first year that they were open. And I think that one of the keys to the successes of those two community garden programs is that the city was the initiator, but passionate residents forming a community garden club took charge of the everyday operations of the garden. So one of the key recommendations contained in this report is being the catalyst to assemble those interested residents and establish a garden club that would operate with an agreement with the city, but would operate somewhat independently, elect their own officers and designate their own work days and work tasks, and really administer the garden with assistance and oversight and maintenance from the city.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other member of council have a question? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next item is the presentation for the FY 2022-2023 budget from the city administrator.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As of this evening, I am honored to transmit to you the proposed City of Fairburn fiscal year 2022-2023 budget. It was emailed to each of you earlier this evening. This budget focuses on our shared strategic vision, Fairburn Focus 2023, Refresh, Rebrand, and Renew. You will see in this budget that we have outlined critical investments, over $63 million in key areas such as public safety, parks and recreation, planning and zoning, economic development, public works, downtown development. Our goal is to continue to ensure that Fairburn is situated to succeed. This budget strongly reflects your priorities as mayor and council as developed in our spring planning retreat. And as you have the opportunity to look over the budget, you will see both in the transmittal letter and throughout the budget allocations based around refresh, rebrand, and renew. This evening is simply to communicate to you that the budget has been transmitted. We utilized a collaborative process from the beginning in assembling this proposed budget. Every department head assembled an initial budget. Myself, the Assistant City Administrator, and the Finance Director worked through each of those budgets line by line in concert with those department directors. We then looked at our projected revenues for the upcoming fiscal year, went back through a second round of meetings with department heads to make adjustments to those budgets. What you will see in this proposed budget is the result of that collaborative effort. Department heads, along with your executive management team, have been working together from the very beginning of this process. This, again, is a proposed budget. It has been submitted for your consideration. Moving forward, based on our budget calendar, which has also been submitted to you as well, on August 15th and 16th, we will host budget workshops where the city administrator's office, finance director, department heads will meet with mayor and council to present each department's budget in summary, highlight some of the areas of each budget, and allow you as our elected leaders to ask questions on any allocations or anything you have seen in the proposed budget. That will take place again on August 15th and 16th, followed by at our August 22nd council meeting will be our public hearing on the FY 22-23 proposed budget. And then it is proposed on September 12th that the mayor and council will adopt the final budget ordinance and millage rate, as well as the presentation of our 5-year capital improvement plan. And of course, our FY 22-23 budget will initiate on October 1st. So again, the budget has been transmitted as proposed to mayor and council, and as outlined in the budget calendar, we will proceed throughout the budget process to work our way to a final adopted budget.
Does any member of council have any questions as relates to those two budget dates that he mentioned, the 15th and the 16th? Yes, ma'am.
Madam Mayor. Yes, Mr. Phillips, can you detail how that process is going to be on the 15th and the 16th?
Yes, ma'am.
Would it be all council members? No, can't be all council members, but yeah, I need to know some detail. I didn't get that.
And time too,
And
please.
timeline.
So on the
Yeah.
15th and the 16th, and Madam Clerk, if I get the times wrong, please help me out. I believe we are scheduled the 15th and the 16th from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. With 12 departments, there's no way we could do that in one sitting. So we spread it over 2 evenings so that those meetings will be accessible and easier to manage. The process for those meetings, and yes, we'd like every council member to be present. The process for those meetings is each department head will come and present to you the highlights from FY22, their key goals for FY23, and then they will speak to key elements of their budget for about 10 to 15 minutes maximum. After that, they will pause and allow you as council members to ask any questions about any part of their budget. Of course, myself, Ms. Chris, Mr. David will be here as well. But it's designed for you to get an in-depth look at each department's budget, for the department director to present what they have in their current year budget and to answer any questions you may have. Now, prior to that, as transmitted this evening, you will already have the proposed budget as well as the previous 3 years' budget, so you can see how it compares to the previous budgets. It'll give you the opportunity, as you have the time, to work through those budgets if you want to formulate any questions in advance of those budget presentations. But the idea is for you to have some time to digest those budgets, then they will present them to you, and you'll have an opportunity to ask any questions you may have.
So with each night, it'll be 6 department heads or 12 department heads each night?
No, 6, we'll split them.
You split
I
them
don't know
up?
if it'll work out 6 and 6 because some departments' budgets are much more detailed
Right, got
than
you.
others, right?
Yes,
Some
yes.
department budgets may take 5 to 7 minutes, another one may take the whole 15.
Right.
So we'll look at that and try to allocate them so that we get them done in an even, equitable way. And so, depending on the department, the length of the presentation may be slightly longer, slightly shorter.
Okay, but we have 2 days to do that.
Yes, ma'am.
And we are to be here on the 15th and the 16th from 5 to 9 p.m.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that was not, okay, I didn't get that understanding when we got the times, but that's fine. Yeah, I just thought we had to select a slot to come in like we have done in the past.
No.
As to
so
what was available, I didn't know it was the 4 hours.
The goal of that is, to the extent that you are available, is we want all council members to hear the same thing at the same time, get the same information. Having done this for many years, I've seen it done a number of ways. When there are one-on-one meetings, sometimes one council member comes away with one understanding and another one with a different understanding. I found it works better if we all share the information together, ask questions, everyone can hear what's asked, hear what's answered, and it keeps everyone, hopefully, on a common understanding.
Okay, thank you.
And just for further clarification purposes, again, to kind of put it out, one of the things I was pretty much adamant about this year, well, as Mr. Phillips hears me say it a lot, was good for one council member is good for 6. And I said my whole position in this year was especially because of the amount of money that's being distributed, even though we agreed on it during the retreat, we just felt the best way to ensure was that basically give, in this case, there's nothing to hide. We don't have anything to be ashamed of. So we said we can discuss in the open with 6 folk here. And as he mentioned, one council member may have a question about one department that another person never would have thought of. We just thought this would be better. One of the things I didn't want to run up against too, part of why we're doing it, I don't like running up against the October the 1st deadline where you're trying to get a budget approved at the 11th hour, and now you're taking stuff out, putting stuff in with little or no regard of the impact because there's no time for you to really discuss it and consider it. And so that's part of our objective as well that we think is important. Plus, in this case, which you having a public hearing on the 22nd, that gives your public more than enough time to ask questions that even members of council may not even have considered. And so,
The public hearing is on the 22nd. Also, on the 15th and 16th, those are public meetings. So
Yes.
citizens are welcome to come as the budgets are presented and hear your questions. And there won't be public comment in those meetings, but they are publicly accessible. They're welcome to hear everything that goes on. Our goal, as the mayor just mentioned, is to be as transparent as possible. Ultimately, as you approve a budget, it will go into ClearGov, which you approved earlier this year, and it will be publicly accessible on our website. And people can see exactly what council approved. Not only that, as you know, they will be able to track spending throughout the fiscal year to see exactly where we are year to date. So our goal, again, is to be as transparent as we can in making sure that everyone knows exactly where their capital is being spent.
any other?
One last thing, Mayor, I'm sorry. By charter, the city charter requires that budget be approved no later than 15 days prior to the start of the fiscal year. So that was another driver of the budget calendar, making sure we met that charter vision to have our budget approved no less than 15 days prior to start of October 1st.
Any other, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, so is there, I know you transmitted the budget electronically, and it is a huge document. But at a minimum, can we get a printout of the summary so that, that's how I review documents and
Certainly,
can evaluate it that, so at a minimum, the summary
certainly.
of the departments. And if there are lots of questions, counter proposals to the budgets, what's the process for evaluating the counter proposals?
So we will present the budget as proposed. The department heads will go through it individually. You may ask questions. That process is designed to be interactive. Ultimately, you as council members will approve the budget. The department heads will present so they can explain in detail as required exactly why the allocations are proposed the way they are, how it connects to programming, service delivery, the various things in their budget. And so that process is designed to be the interactive process where ultimately you can ask whatever questions you like, question whatever amounts you like, then ultimately it will be the decision of mayor and council to either approve the budget as proposed or to incorporate whatever changes you as elected leaders think should be there. So that's the process that's designed to allow us to work our way, department by department, budget by budget, through the budget process and have that interactive exchange around what was proposed and any questions you may have about those allocations.
Okay, but when, during that process, we approve any counter proposals? That's what I'm asking.
So as part of the final approval of the budget on September 12th, any proposed changes that council proposes would need to be a part of the motion to approve the budget. So if you want to change an allocation, reallocate money, whatever your decision is, that becomes part of the approved budget that you will approve on September 12th. And as that motion is made, any changes to the budget, any specific allocations that council wants included as part of that approval, that would be part of the approval process.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
And just for clarification purposes too, it's, just so we be real clear, any modifications that's made, I guess, at that time, just like any other, piece of legislation, the majority of the body would actually have to approve that amendment.
Correct.
Of course.
No, I want to make sure, I'm just making sure publicly we all understand what we're doing. That day, it's not we come there and then just say everything, every amendment is approved. The amendment has to be agreed by, in this case, majority of the body. And so I just want to make sure we're real clear because, again, this is a new process for most of our staff and most of the people watching us there. So again,
Yes, that's
don't want to leave anything unchecked as it relates to procedurally what we're doing. Okay. Does anybody else have a question? If not, we'll adjourn and start at 7 o'clock sharp. those that couldn't make it, that had conflicts they couldn't get out of. But I want to thank our city government that showed this family just tremendous support during this time of loss. And so again, I just want to say thank you. And again, the city members of city council, myself, we want to thank everyone that played a role in ensuring that family understood that we all lost a family member. So just with that being said, go ahead and at this point, approve, can I entertain a motion to approve the city council minutes that commenced on July the 20th?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any corrections? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. I'd like to entertain a motion to entertain approval of the city council meeting for the meeting that commenced on July the 25th, 2022. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any corrections? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? That motion carries. Ms. James, is there any public speakers today?
No, sir, but can we
Okay.
adopt the agenda?
Okay, I apologize. I'll skip right over it, but I'll come right back to it. Even after you talked me through it twice. You have before you a city council agenda with a consent agenda items. Does anyone have can I get a motion to entertain, to adopt the city council agenda with the consent? And you can mention if you want any consent item removed. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
No removal of any consent agenda items. Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? That motion carries. At this time, Ms. James, just for parliamentary procedure, don't I have to entertain a motion to actually, in this case, approve the consent agenda? Item that was, yes, ma'am. Just want to make sure it was in order, because I know you'll deal with me afterwards. Can I entertain a motion? You have before you a consent agenda item, appoint to the Development Authority and Downtown Development Economic, Mr. Todd Ireland. You have a consent agenda item number 2, the Development Authority, to appoint Mr. Jet Hathaway. You have consent agenda item number 3, a resolution to adopt the City of Fairburn Community Garden Strategy. You have consent item number 4, the site license agreement for mural installation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
A motion is made by Mr. Whitmore, second by Ms. Davis. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. At this point, we'll go to item number 5.
On the regular agenda tonight, you have task order number 149 with integrated science and engineering for GIS water database update. This comes from the Utility, Water, and Sewer Department.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening, sir.
The Utility Department brings forth tonight task order number 149, which encompasses a geographic information system, GIS map of the water system. Just a brief outline. The city has experienced significant growth over the years with residential, commercial, and industrial developments. The city of Fairburn owns and maintains the water infrastructure throughout our jurisdiction. However, the city of Atlanta provides water service to areas directly adjacent to Fairburn. Currently, the city has a GIS map of the water system, but it's incomplete, inaccurate, and has area discrepancies when compared to the city of Atlanta maps. This makes it difficult to accurately determine the availability of water utility service, water locations, knowledge of capacity availability, and the processing of rezoning requests. Having a complete and accurate GIS map of the water system is very critical to the future management and expansion of our water system. Additionally, the city is affiliated with the Middle Chattahoochee Treatment Plant Project. Fairburn, Palmetto, and Union City are having to provide a concise and thorough GIS map to receive the accurate amount of water to be delivered to each city. In more ways than one, this information will also equip our city to clearly distinguish ownership boundaries between the different municipalities and provide the necessary data required for analysis and capital improvement planning. We estimate this project to be completed within 3 months. Staff recommends that City Council approve the task order 149 with Integrated Science and Engineering Incorporated for the GIS water database update and authorize the mayor to sign the task order for the amount not to exceed $134,500. Are there any questions?
Okay, I'll bring the item to the floor. Members of council, you have before you to approve a task order number 149 with Integrated Science and Engineering for the GIS water database update and authorize the mayor to sign the task order for the amount not to exceed $134,500. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made and properly seconded. Any questions?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Martin, does this identify the GIS map of our water system, does this help us identify the type of pipes that we have that's delivering the water? Specifically, can we identify the lead pipes?
In this particular instance, basically no, because we're analyzing size and capacity. We're understanding valves, fire hydrants. We're really outlining the border which encompasses our. We've been having discrepancies, as I stated earlier, between so many municipalities. This yours, is this mine, you know? So now we're actually, this here task order will put everybody to sit at the table, be able to analyze what's yours, and then we can make those decisions to work in our jurisdiction more and finding things like you say, lead and copper on each end.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other members of council? Got a question, Mr. Senator. Do you want to speak, or you want me to speak about why this is is such a need as it relates to the Water Authority?
So I can start, Mayor, if you'd like to pick up that.
Okay.
As Mr. Martin referenced, we are a part of the Middle Establishment Water Authority, and there is a proposed water. It's actually been in the works as some of you know for several years. Currently, the projections for the cost of that are several years outdated. And in order for us, as we have requested from the design engineering firm to give us an accurate cost on what the total plant cost, and more important for us, whatever the portion of that cost will be, this type of GIS data is a necessity. Because it'll be able to determine capacity and determine exactly what our cost will be. Because at this point, we're unable to specifically tell you as council members exactly what that water plant is going to cost. Now, that's not surprising, and that the numbers now may need to be updated. But this is a key component that we must provide in order for them to give us an accurate cost estimate, not only for us, but for Union City and Palmetto as well, who are doing the same type of work. I believe, Mr. Martin, you
Yes.
said actually undertaking the same project.
Yes, they are.
At the same time. So it's a necessity for us in order to get our arms around what is going to be a multi-million-dollar proposed project that we have to be sure is financially viable for the city.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions? The only thing I'll add again, this is a conversation that did come up at our last Water Authority meeting, and it was requested in this case by myself as well as it was requested in this case by myself and the city administration to both mayors on the authority. And one of the things that what I found out, as he mentioned, both the other two cities are actually in this case just putting the finishing touches on theirs. This project was actually adopted by the other two cities. I want to say they told me 2 years ago. So we're literally we're the last man standing right now as it relates to getting this done. And so this has to be done for us to get anywhere near an accurate assessment of what it's going to cost so that we can make a decision. Unfortunately, that will come after you adopt the budget, though. And so, but which at that time, you'll be given a full report by me or the Water Authority as it relates to the impact, if that impact changes our picture or what any additional steps we may have to change as a result of what that end number looks like. But I just wanted to make sure we were real clear why we're doing this. Any other questions?
And it's one key component of developing that process of necessity, but we also have meetings scheduled with several other the key stakeholders in that water authority process for the very purpose of drilling down specifically on the cost, the overall project, and the cost specifically to the city of Fairburn.
One other question, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
So will this study, the fire hydrants, many of the fire hydrants in the city are owned by the city of Atlanta, right? Or some of them are?
No, it's just mostly, the discrepancy comes when we come on the outskirts. If you may think recently, you look at the AME Church, for example. It took a while trying to get that repaired with us back and forth, and they gave us the right to do this, theirs. So we were out having a dispute about the whole thing. So this is much needed to keep those particular disputes down and get the service that we need to go and render situations like that, which are considered to me emergency, and get those resolved.
Okay, so in that particular situation, it was determined that it was a city of Atlanta fire hydrant. But what did our database show, or we didn't know that?
Our database was very unclear.
Okay. And this project is to help with clarifying all of the hydrants, who owns which one, and has responsibility for each one.
Yes, that's part of the project, the coordination between them and us, and sitting at the table and putting it in ironclad language so we'll know.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other members of council have a question? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you, Council and Mayor.
Okay, at this time, I'll ask for city council comments. I'll start with Mr. Smallwood.
I don't have anything.
Okay, I'll go to Ms. Davis.
No comment, Mayor.
Okay, go to Mr. Palin.
No comment.
Okay, I'll go to Mr. Whitmore.
No comment, Mayor.
And finally, the Mayor Pro Tem.
No comments, Mayor.
Okay, seeing none, I'd like to,
If I could, I just wanted to introduce to Mayor and Council our project manager engineer that was approved through Atlas at the last council meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Dana Smith is here in the back right corner this evening. This is his second week with us. He is already paying huge dividends. The RFP for design services for our Fire Station 23 will hit the streets tomorrow. And so I just wanted to take an opportunity to introduce him to Mayor and Council, and we're looking forward to moving all of the projects that are under his purview that are coming shortly forward as efficiently as possible.
okay, welcome aboard, sir. I don't have any other comments. I make my comments as relates to the loss of Sergeant Lieutenant Ashley. So with that being said, can I entertain a motion to go into executive to discuss two litigation items?
So moved.
Is there a motion made by Councilwoman Davis? Can I get a second?
Second.
Second made by Councilman Smallwood. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We will now adjourn into executive session. Okay. Oh, he told me, what happened is, when you
Yes, Mayor and Council. Based upon the information provided by the MEAG Power staff concerning the tender option decision pertaining to the Vogel Units 3 and 4 project, and after consultation with our internal staff concerning the potential benefits and costs associated with the tender option, I hereby move that the City Council for the City of Fairburn notify MEAG Power that it does not support exercising the tender option by SPVJ, nor does the council support exercising the tender option by SPVP.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by, second by Mr. Smallwood. Any other comments by council? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Okay, so can I entertain a motion to come out of the official meeting, to end the official meeting?
So moved.
Adjourn?
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, in case Mr. Whitmore made the motion, second by Mrs. Smallwood, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.